Hello, everyone. I just want to welcome you today to another webinar, another Credit Safe webinar. As many of you know, my name is Nathan Cobb. I'll be your host today. And as we get started, as we do every Tuesday and Thursday, I want to make sure that you know a little bit about what's going to happen and how this is all going to go. Today, we're going to be going back and forth in a discussion type webinar format. So I want to make sure that you're able to ask questions throughout the webinar. You don't have to hold those questions to the end. So if we're talking about something and you have a question about it, please don't hesitate to send that in. The way you do that is at the bottom of your webinar screen, the Zoom screen, you will see a little text bubble type thing that says Q&A. Go ahead, type everything in there. I will be taking those, looking at those, and I will give those to our speaker. And ask them, I will do my best to interpret what you're saying and ask them in a logical way. And if I mess them up, please don't hesitate to call me out and have me re-ask them. That happens plenty. It's not a big issue. And getting right into it, because I want to use all the time that we have today. George Bressler is joining me today. George began his career in the credit industry in 1988. And then in 2000, saw an opportunity to do something a little bit different and started GB Collects. Since its inception, GB Collects has produced over 1 billion, yes, that's billion with a B, dollars in debt recoveries and employs 70 people. GB Collects has been a 7-time winner of the Philly 100 and 6-time winner of the South Jersey 25 fastest growing companies. They've been a 6-time consecutive winner on the Inc. 5000. They've been named the best place to work by Philadelphia Business Journal, best places to work for Inside Arm, best places to work in Philadelphia Magazine. Obviously, it's a great company. George, on his own type of accolades here, George created the first fully accredited 340-hour commercial collection class provided by Burlington Community College for their 2018 school year. George taught, certified all the participants, and was instrumental in assisting them find job placement for anybody that graduated through that program. He is also a founding member of the CCA of A, the Commercial Collection Agencies of America, where he is a board member to this day. And I don't know that he has time to do any of that and still run his business, but apparently he does. And as you'll hear, I'm sure through this, and as you've seen even just from the promos that we did, he's a bit of a character. So he's got a great sense of humor and a great personality. And I'm just excited. I know George personally and have really enjoyed getting to know him professionally and personally, and excited to have him on here. So welcome, George.
Wow, what an introduction, Nathan. That is fantastic. Thank you.
Well, you know, I do what I can. It's not hard with all these accolades and all these awards that you and your company have won.
I just realized I'm really old. Been way too long, and I'm still alive. That's the crazy part.
Still alive, kicking and doing well, right?
Welcome credit community. I live, eat, and sleep this stuff. And I know no one wakes up and says, hey, I want to be a bill collector, or, that's just something you kind of fall into. It kind of fit my personality. So glad to be here, and thanks for taking some time to chat with me today.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I love the idea here when we talk to you and we kind of we're going back and forth about ideas. I love the idea here of a commercials collections agency, somebody who your job is to collect on bills and things like that, to say, how do you avoid talking to us? How do you avoid getting to this point? I think it's just a great perspective. So I'm really excited to kind of go back and forth with you here today. But let's just jump in if that's okay with you.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
All right, man. So what is the most important thing? Let's just start off with the most important thing for folks to do, other than obviously, you got to pay your bills on time. But other than that, what's the most important thing that somebody can do to avoid going into collections? What can business do?
You got to have a dialogue. You got to know who you're buying from. Many people, and I'll call them customers, some people call them debtors. I think that's a derogatory term, but it is true. Many customers look at it as, wow, I can buy $20,000 worth of product. Let's buy $20,000 worth of product. Well, you have to remember, this is a delicate relationship. They're going to come after it sooner or later. Having that delicate conversation with a credit manager is what's going to build your credit worthiness. That credit manager wants to know you. They like to press flesh, shake hands, if you still do that type of thing. But at the end of the day, it's all about communication and building a dialogue. You have to get to know the people you're working with. Simply buying product because you can buy product sounds great, but it's not necessarily the best strategy. You want to be able to discuss price. You want to be able to discuss terms. Many credit managers have pre-printed terms. I'm not a big fan of those. Those pre-printed terms were 50 years ago when mail was being delivered by horseback, maybe 100 years ago. Net 30, you look at term sheets and it's a net 30 days. We live in a now environment. Have a conversation, build that relationship,
Right.
and have a dialogue.
Right. And when they do that, should that be just a professional, only keep it to the terms and the conditions and all that type of stuff, or should it be like, should there be more to that dialogue? I guess is the better question there.
You're going to want something from these people. If you just keep it to the dialogue, you're only going to get what they're willing to offer. I always try to build a little bit of a relationship, understanding everything from how they like their job, what's new in their job, what's new and exciting in their job. Credit managers will tell you they can smell it coming, but they'd rather have a dialogue with you and get to know the people that they're extending credit to.
Right. And I can say that from personal experience. George is very personable and started asking me questions, and he and I hit it off right away the first time that we met, and you could tell that was just part of his personality. So that makes a lot of sense. And I think, we get away from that, especially right now with this pandemic, where we've gotten away from that relationship thing. It's just transactional. Let's just do this. And now we're realizing those relationships are what's keeping businesses going with all the craziness that's happening right now.
Well, this brings us to a little bit of a different topic. And that's where sales and credit management will always have the Tom and Jerry relationship. That's what I call it around here. Always one's beating on the other. When collection goes bad, it's the sales guy's fault. When sales goes bad, it's the collection guy's fault, and vice versa. Everyone blames the other guy. Sales is driven to sell product. Credit and collection, I guess that's one term in today's environment. Credit and collection's job is to back that salesperson up and get that check in the bank. It's not really a sale until the check clears the bank. As I've seen in the industry over the last 30 some odd years, many companies are charging the salespeople back now. Years ago, they wouldn't charge back, right? Now they're starting to say to a salesperson, if your client doesn't pay, it's on you. And what does that resolve back to? It resolves back to having that relationship at sales. Yeah. But that person who's buying that product, have one relationship with their salesperson, have a second relationship with the credit manager, and all of a sudden you have two people in your corner when you need them the most. That's
great. Yeah, that's great. I love that. So you're talking about this and the sales and credit and how all this works together. There's like a life cycle there, really. I mean, like a symbiotic relationship. You want to explain that a little bit more and like give me a little bit more of a perspective on how that is and how a business knows where they fit into all that, depending on where they're at?
Many of my clients, and I have roughly, 2,000 clients, many of them have a blanket credit policy. Something I'm a little against, but that's a different topic. And they'll give out a flat credit line, and they'll give out a $10,000 credit line. Not everyone needs a $10,000 credit line. Some people use that credit line. Salespeople will push a product to get that credit line maximized, because then you need something from the salesperson. You need them to work on your behalf and be a delegate to try to increase that credit line. But there's a black side to that. There's a dark, dark, dark black side, black cloud, if you would, around that. Increasing that credit line sounds good, but really, what are you doing? You're increasing your debt load. So unless you're moving that product, unless you're using that service, and you're generating a good COGS or cost of goods sold, sometimes you want to look back at that credit line and recognize that a bigger credit line is not necessarily the best way to go. That's the initial part of the life cycle. Once that credit line is engaged, if it's not paid off right away, now you're in under the gun. And that's the problem. What you want to be able to do is get on some type of aggressive repayment, because at the end of the day, you have credit terms and you got to stick to them. And again, once that element of trust is broken, you're never going to get it back 100%. You may get a little love back. It's the old olive branch. They extended it to you. Once you default, you've actually broken that olive branch in half and stabbed them in the back with it. And that's where the trust element goes out the window. Now, all of a sudden, you're at odds with the credit manager, and who's your best friend? The salesperson. Now you're going back to the salesperson going, give me a little more credit. Things will turn around. And before you know, you're in upside down. And then you got to deal with guys like me with the two thumbs on the camera.
The two thumbs and the bald head, right? That's
right.
That type of guy. You know, you got it's shiny, man, and you know in the little promo picture that we have of you, you wrote all over it. So I can't really get away from it.
Behind me, I just noticed on the wall, it was for young entrepreneurs trying to teach them that your head above the rest, keep it going, right? Right,
exactly. Okay, so we've got this life cycle. We've got folks that are at some point on it, on that commercial life cycle of sales to credit to collections possibly, and kind of back and forth with that. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of these businesses have multiple suppliers or distributors or whatever that they're working with, and they don't necessarily always have the time to work with each one of them individually. I mean, isn't it just, can't I just like call the manager, call the next level up, call the VP, call whoever, and just get it taken care of?
You can pull that card one time, but once that card's out, it's gone. And that credit manager has a memory like an elephant. I know a ton of credit managers. They're all great people. One thing they do have is a great memory. 80% of clients, and this was referred back to one of the other wonderful credit safe seminars I've attended, but 80% of
love it.
Nice. 80% of debt comes from clients that have a long-term relationship. And why is that? Let's talk about that a minute. Because you feel comfortable. You start eating debt, and before you know it, you're playing banker as a credit manager. And that client of yours is now indebted to you because they claim, oh, we've been doing business for 20 years. That's great. Right. But as a credit manager, look back at that credit application. That thing's 20 years old too. It's useless at this point. So, people use the old, we've been doing business for 20 years as an ultimate get out of the jail free card. But at the end of the day, that credit manager has numbers they have to hit. And that manager who you're going to speak to, you may get a little love. You're not going to get any more from the credit manager once you go over the head and disrespect that relationship. That's for sure.
Gotcha. Now, when you bring up an interesting point there with a lot of times you've had a relationship for a long period of time. And maybe it's even gone through, say, a couple of accounts payables folks, a couple of credit managers, a couple of, back and forth. Sometimes it hasn't, sometimes it has. Is there anything that you can suggest or help folks with on updating that information, whether they're the credit manager or the other side?
If I was a credit manager sitting at my desk and I got a call from a client of mine who owes me money and said, hey, I'm in town this week. Let's grab a bite. Let's grab a drink. Let's grab a cup of coffee. That tells me you're building a relationship. That proactive phone call from a past due client to a credit manager speaks volumes. It says you give a crap. At the end of the day, you do care. And if you don't care, those are the people not making the phone calls, not making the effort, not making that pitch. Shaking a hand or having a cup of coffee with a credit manager puts the face-to-face relationship at a pinnacle moment. Yeah. No longer are you some ghost on the other end of the phone. You're a real person. They remember that. And when times get tough, and we're in tough times, you're going to need those credit managers to be in your corner. This is the time to act. Have that conversation, build that relationship, enjoy the dialogue, enjoy the salesperson. Talk to that salesperson. They can help too.
Right.
Absolutely.
Great stuff. I'm going to take a little bit of a left turn because there's something that you and I had talked about that I kind of want to get, and maybe it's just me, but I'm thinking that folks out there are going to want to know too. So there's a bunch of different terms out there, and a lot of times we think of, oh, I'm getting money from a bank, I'm getting money, credit from a bank, I'm getting credit from a company, I'm getting all this. What's the difference really between that? What's the difference between like a creditor and a banker, and why does it even matter?
It does, because one time you're setting up terms with a banker, and it's very crystal clear, and there's a default cure, usually a personal guarantee. What I see in my line of work, by the time it gets to me, a lot of clients or debtors, if you want to use that term, utilize their credit managers as their internal banker. They borrow product, they sell services and products, and they don't remit on time. So they're forcing the hand of the credit manager to act like a banker. Credit managers don't want to be your banker. They want to be your credit manager. They want to establish a reasonable line of credit with you. They want you to pay within those terms, and they want to be able to know who their client is so that in the event of a problem, a default, God forbid a pandemic, they know that you're solid. Right now, you're forcing their hand. Think about the last time you applied for a bank note or bank loan or a PPP loan or any type of funding from a financial institution. It was a stack of documents, a manifesto at best. However, when you apply for a credit application, it's one page, maybe two, sometimes stale information, and you're being sold on the good nature of what you are today. And for those credit managers, look at those credit safe reports. They're going to tell you a book about the person. They're going to tell you which way to go with it. And for those customers, definitely be concerned about what's on your credit report. Look at those things. Know what people are saying about you. Frankly, your credit report is your calling card in the credit industry.
Yeah, that's great. And you bring up, I mean, you bring up the tough times and the stuff that's going on right now. I mean, is there some sort of advice or something specific that you can point to? I know you have got to have, some craziness going on with your business too. I mean, you've got to be feeling it as well, just like everybody else. But is there something you could tell folks, that are listening today that's like, hey, pay attention to this?
Yeah. So, here we are in tough times, right? Nobody wants to be that guy or that girl who's making outbound phone calls, stepping on people. You want to be able to work something out, make payments. If in fact you're wrapping up and you want to settle with people, that's fine too. Understand though, if someone says to me, I'm wrapping up and I can pay you 40% today, I want to take that person to a casino, because if they're are 40% to 4 decimal points, those are 1,000-to-1 odds. I love numbers, but 1,000-to-1 proving to exactly 40% is impossible. If someone says to me, I can settle today, I've done a debt to equity calculation, I want everyone to get the same settlement amount, and it's 68.42%. Well, now we're working with something. But when someone comes in with a round number, my first answer is no. The second answer is, how did you arrive at that number? And the third answer is, how much did you settle with everybody else at? So if you're going to settle, do a true debt to equity calculation. If you're going to have a dialogue and be delinquent, make payments. Be consistent. Don't promise something you can't deliver. And for the love of it all, if you're going to promise something, back it up. If you're going to have that dialogue, back it up. And have the money to back it up. No one likes to work out an arrangement and then get defaulted on again. You kind of feel like a fool twice, right? So that's the problem. People mean well, but a lot of times they feel good about having a conversation. They don't finish the conversation. And finishing the conversation is when that payment clears. And that's important to think about.
Yeah, like you were saying, the sale doesn't actually finish until the check clears. The conversation really doesn't end until it's resolved, until that issue's resolved. So
frankly, you don't want me chasing you. I don't go away. I'm that guy at dinner parties. It's really funny. You started off by saying, it's a tough topic. I bring up what I do at a dinner party with 6 people. 3 people split one way, 3 people split the other, and it's not something everyone likes. Unfortunately, I always say to people, put me out of business. Pay your bills on time. Pay every creditor right. Never have a dispute, and we don't have a problem. And I'm out of business. I'm doing something. The problem is, it's never going to happen. That's why guys like me exist. And I'm an unfortunate resolve. But as we started off, my firm's responsible for over $1 billion from start to now in debt recovery. Let that sink in a little bit. That means jobs. That means more businesses. That means more families and exponential growth. And that's what ultimately we're talking about. We talk about how this will affect you. How will it affect your company? If a guy like me comes after you, I squeeze you from every angle. I wind up putting pressure on you. You wind up answering your phone much more often to talk to me than you'd like to. Those could be money and time spent making new sales, perhaps selling and servicing your clients. But instead, you're dealing with me. Now you're in a negative situation. Now you're no longer skipping to work every day because now you're running because you have to pay your bills. So think about that a little bit.
Yeah,
How does it affect
absolutely.
your company? You think about the person answering the phone. Think about the morale issue. Think about the accounts payable people who are getting pressure and pressure from credit managers and collection personnel. Think about that person getting demand letters. What type of message does that send to your employees? What type of message does it send to the employee who's thinking that maybe they want to ask you for a raise and they're seeing all these collection letters come in? And now they're going, there's no way I can ask for a raise. I need to find a better place to work. So fundamentally, unfortunately, it has an exponential twist to it all.
Right. Well, and that's, I mean, you know, that's there's a real cost with having to deal with this, right? There's an extra cost of not paying your bills on time and not paying out beyond just maybe some interest or fees or something like that. You want to talk about that? I mean, you're kind of talking about that, but you want to explore that a little bit more there?
Yeah, there's a ton to it. So let's take a credit manager and he sells a product for $1,000 and his COGS, cost of goods sold, is 25. Let's make it reasonable, 50%, right? So if he sells a normal $1,000 product, he makes $500. But wait a second, he sells a $1,000 product and no one pays him. Well, that one client doesn't pay him. Now he's down $500. In order to get back to where he started from, he's got to eat $500. They got to sell another $1,000 to get back to zero and another $1,000 to get back to the initial cost of goods sold profit margin. So that one bad debt means 3 times sales. Let that sink in a little bit. So, think about every time you have a bad debt, you're going to have to sell 3 times as much to get back to where you started from that day you received a bad check or that day you did not get paid. So it's a 3-time calculation. That hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the real cost of collection.
And that's that's just something, it's, if you're not in the industry all the time, I mean, it's not something you think about necessarily.
Someone says, I'm not going to pay that. What that means to the small business owner can be devastating. That small business owner may not be working on a 50% COGS. They may be working on a 20% COGS. So, on a 20% COGS, 5 times sales. I got to keep selling it to get back to square one. So, keep that in mind. You don't want to get to the collection angle.
Right.
I know a lot of people would say, wow, that's counterproductive, George. Don't you want more business? I've got plenty of business. And I got more business than most people could shake a stick at. And frankly, we're very selective at what business we do take. But I will tell you, if you have a dialogue, you make payments, and you're open and honest and carefree about it, some credit managers may ask for substantiation. They may say, let me see your checkbook. Let me see your balance sheet. Let me see your IRS notices that you're claiming to have. So be realistic with it. Everyone's gone through this once or twice in their life. It's not something new. It's just something uncomfortable, perhaps. And I will guarantee you, if you can have a valid, comfortable conversation with your friendly bill collector, you'll get through it.
Gotcha. Now, let me ask you this. We've kind of been talking about a bunch of different things here, but one of the consistent things you're talking about is this dialogue or relationship that you're building. What if we've got folks that, right now they haven't had that dialogue, they haven't built that relationship, and suddenly 2020 comes in with a vengeance of, pandemic and, every other the thing that's been thrown at us, and we all want that, turn it off, turn it back on and reset the year that we're not going to get. And they don't have that dialogue, they don't have that yet. And now they're having issues because they don't have the same foot traffic or they don't have the same sales numbers coming in or what have you. And they look at their suppliers and they're going, I don't know how I'm going to pay this. Is it too late to start that dialogue?
No, it's never too late. And, frankly, I'll dial it back to Mark Edwards' Credit Safe Directors seminar yesterday, where he indicated that they were expecting on some early projections a 30% default rate on small businesses. No one wants that. So in order to help the default rate, what collection agencies, and I can speak for the majority of certified commercial collection agencies under the CCA of A, we understand these are tough times. We don't want to be chasing your stimulus money. That's for you to grow your business. What we want to be chasing is bad debt. We'd like you to work with us. We'd like you to make payments with us. We'd like to have a dialogue with you. If you happen to get turned over to collection, it's not the end of the world. Have a dialogue. As they say, man up, woman up, person up, if you want to call it that. But have that dialogue. No one's going to bite your head off. We're here to help you out. Of course, there's a couple of bad apples in the industry, and those will wean themselves out over the years. Always look for a common ground. We've all been there before. Make those payments, have that dialogue. And if you can't make the payments, be candid about it. Misleading us makes us not trust the relationship, and then we go further. So we like to avoid that. We'd like the fact that you'd avoid collections from the get-go. And, don't take too much credit. Take what you need and negotiate your rates too. If a credit manager offers you a bigger line of credit, I would turn that around and say, hey, how about a small line of credit? And maybe I get a better cost per good cost. So instead of me paying, $1.20 a unit, maybe I pay $1.05 a unit, but I need a smaller credit line because I have a less of a risk factor of going default. That'll help you at times of pandemic, just like we're in now, at times of need.
Right. No, that's great. Is there anything else that you could say, any other advice there with those type of negotiations? Is it one of those like, hey, I can't pay you this much on a 30-day terms, but if we extend it to 90, we can do better? Like what type of things would you suggest there that they do when they're doing that dialogue? Credit
managers look at one determining factor, DSO, days sale outstanding, right? That's the basic terminology in the credit management industry. Everyone has a goal of having a DSO to mimic their initial credit line, their initial credit terms, excuse me. Right now, you'll see those DSO numbers going through the roof. If you can get some money to your creditors, it's better than no money. Of course, no one wants to take $5 on $5,000. We understand that also. Having that dialogue, not taking too much of a bite out of that credit apple from the get-go is important. Also, if you're sitting on product and you can't sell it, talk about a return. Hey, I'm giving you everything I got. I can return product. I can make payments. Maybe if you really feel comfortable with it, maybe you offer up the ultimate goal, and that's a personal guarantee back to your credit manager. A lot of credit applications had old dialogue and they're dated. Sign a new credit application. Offer that up as some type of leverage. Offer to execute a personal guarantee. If you feel strong enough that that's going to secure the environment. Those are a couple basic things that you can do to get that credit manager working and rowing in your direction.
Right. That's great. Yeah, that's great. I wouldn't even have thought the idea of the returns or something like that. That's a great tip there. To talk through folks there. And when they've got multiple creditors, which most businesses do. I mean, we're not saying this is a bad thing at all. We fully expect that for most companies. When you have multiple creditors, if you're having issues, whether it's the pandemic or just a slowdown in your industry or what have you, is there a way to look at evenly distributing that? Should it be more evenly distributed, or should it be a weighted model based on how long you've been with that company, working with that company, or is there a way to kind of determine that?
Good question. It's kind of a three-prong answer. There's the moral question, how do I make everyone fair and equitable? Obviously, that's between you and your maker. I'm not getting involved in that. The second question is, who do you need? And frankly, we all run to who we need, right? If you need a paper supplier, you're going to pay the paper supplier first before you pay the ink supplier. So it goes in somewhat sequential order.
Right.
And third, it's, what's your threshold for pain? I know that sounds terrible. It almost sounds like a Nine Inch Nails song,
Yeah.
Like
Yes. Yeah.
Pain? Right. But at the end of the day, how many collection calls do you want to have? How much of your personal money do you want to put into the company? Maybe if you're that backed up, maybe you look at other options. Maybe you look at some short-term financing. Maybe you look at bringing a partner in on the business for a small share of the company to lend equity to the company so that you could provide liquidity so that you can pay off some of these debts. Those are easy options. But that question is a good question, has about 3 different answers.
Right. Okay. So again, back to that dialogue, the relationship, and kind of situationally dependent in some respects. Makes total sense. So we've got some other questions that have come in and everything, and I want to keep going with these. I know we're starting to push up against time, but I want to try and get at least as many of them as answered as possible. What about when you're working internationally? Whether you're the credit manager trying to get bills paid from international, or you're the company and maybe your supplier is internationally based. Do you have any tips or any advice at that point?
Stop making a body of water become a barrier, or a border become a barrier. You know, you had no problem selling in the region, and you had no problem buying in the region. And I have this like ultimate hurdle. I mean, there are different laws for international collections that need to be abided by. There's different laws in Canada and different provinces. But in the fundamental respect of credit management, especially as a first party, a lot of those laws don't apply. However, a dialogue is it. And there's a salesperson to be sold and there's a buyer to be bought. So don't let the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean or a border stop you from having a dialogue. It seems to be this artificial border. I see a lot of clients go, oh my God, I have a Canadian debtor who stiffed me for 10 grand. I said, did you talk to him? Oh no, it's Canada. It's not Mars, it's Canada. It's
Right.
the language. You know, and if they don't, there's enough services out there that can get you some translation. Don't let those barriers become obvious barriers. Hurdle them with ease. Ask for your money. Be strict, but be fair, and be willing to work with people as credit managers. And for those customers out there, potential debtors, understand the border does not protect you from debt collection. That's the ultimate.
Right. Well, George, we're pushing up against time, so I'm gonna start to wrap this up here. I could talk to you. I mean, we have talked in person, and I could keep talking to you about this for quite a while. And I do want to George did a great job, and I would like to say the check's in the mail, but we didn't pay him to do this on talking about the different stuff that CreditSafe's doing and the different webinars and everything. But just a heads up to everybody, and you'll find this on our website and in our emails and everything. The week of June 8th, we are going to be doing a week all about commercial collections. We'll be having multiple webinars throughout that time, whether it's specific speakers, whether it is panels, group discussions, all those type of things. All that's going to be happening the week of June 8th. So just keep an eye out for that as we post those dates and put the different speakers and everything. George is going to be joining us during that time on a couple of actual different things, speaking not only on what to do if you do end up in collections and how to handle that relationship, but then also as one of our panelists. So, be aware of that. And then I do want to let you know on next Tuesday, which is the 19th, Katie Keach will be joining us for our next webinar. And she's going to be talking about the relationship between sales and collections. So kind of continuing this theme, we're going to have that. And I know George kind of touched on that, and Katie and I are going to be discussing that on next Tuesday at 2 p.m. As always, you can find all of our webinars, all the CreditSafe webinars on our website. Go to creditsafe.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see B2B guide. Click on that and you'll see a link right for the webinars, and you can register on there, or you can go to our LinkedIn page at CreditSafe, and you can go to the events area, or you can follow the feed and get information there about all the different things we're doing, articles that are being written with our data, stuff that we're doing as a company, get to know us a little bit better, and also see all the events that we're doing, which would be right now a lot of virtual ones, just like everybody else, these type of webinars and everything. But George, thanks so much. It's always great to get to talk to you, buddy. I really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.
Bye, folks. Thank you.